Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to our podcast with me, your host, Memory, and
Victor. Good evening, everyone. It's good to have you after a very long time, and we're back here once again.
yeah, it's been a while.
All right.
It's been a while. We've been trying to, figure out a way of how we're going to continue doing this because the last time I think we went live, we struggled with the sound.
Yeah.
And so, as you can see, we invested in something small and we decided to get this. So,
Yeah.
hopefully, it works. And yeah, so we're just going to be talking about random stuff on every episode that comes on our channel because the point of this podcast, we want to focus more on motivating people out there who may be going through different situations and others similar to what we went through growing up, being, with our childhood stuff and being to where we are right now. So we hope, as you watch, you subscribe, you invite your friends, and I hope you get educated and just motivated to do better and become better. So,
That's right.
yeah.
So, just as you mentioned, the whole purpose of this is to motivate each other.
Yeah.
And someone may be thinking, how did we make it? Like, how did we get to America from Zambia?
Right.
So it is through these conversations that we are going to discover how we made it.
Yeah. And what brought us here.
What
and
brought
how,
us
yeah.
here, and just certain things like tips on how to apply for a visa, how to get here. When you get here, what you should do, and so on and so forth. We'll be able to discuss it through these podcasts.
Yeah. So it's just random stuff, but we just want to start from the roots,
That's right.
the roots, and then gradually going to the, to the fruits.
That's right.
So, yeah.
hmm So, what can we start with? I think it's a good way to start by knowing each other. So,
Yeah.
how about knowing how everything started, like how we grew up and so on and so forth? So, let's start with memory. So, just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, what, like, this is it. Like, I've always wanted to share my story one day to motivate somebody out there because I've, growing up, have had situations where people thought I had it all. And because mostly we judge someone based on how they are looking or the outside appearance of someone and not knowing the real person.
Exactly.
So I grew up from the village, the rural deepest part of Zambia called Kasama, and then in Kasama there was now a village called Mlowola
Okay.
village.
hmm
And that's where I grew up from grade 1 to grade 12. So basically,
Nice.
that's where I spent most of my childhood. My father was a teacher, and having a parent who's a teacher, you don't choose where you get to live.
Yeah.
And my childhood was quite interesting because we never really bothered about the superficial stuff that we are seeing now.
hmm
Life was so easy and simple growing up. we
Right.
never I never used to mind what I would eat. There were times when we'd have rishima with groundnuts,
Wow.
like peanuts,
Yeah,
and life goes on.
that's good.
We
hmm
used to cook using firewood.
hmm
We never had stoves, and for us that was normal. And I think I missed that part because that was so peaceful.
That's right.
Life was peaceful then because we it was so simple and everything was just easy.
Yeah. So I
So
think that's an interesting thing you mentioned.
yeah.
Growing up in a rural area, you're more attached to each other. Like you
The
play around with
units,
your
yeah.
friends. Um, you're more connected, than today where you are so much influenced by technology,
Yeah.
social media, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you grew up in such a setup.
And I miss it because even when
hmm
eating, we used to eat as a family.
hmm
You prepare food, you sit around on the ground, of course, not on the couch, because yeah, on the ground, and you eat shima on one plate.
Right.
A family maybe of 6, you're all eating on one plate. Not like each person having their side plate, but on the same plate.
Yeah,
And that used to bond us more, and that I think brought us closer to each other's family than nowadays.
that's good. So we can also say that as you were growing up, there was a lot of emphasis on the cultural values.
Yeah,
Okay, the way you used to grow up was more inclined to the way
we are
that you
now.
live, in
Yeah.
your own culture. So I think that is very interesting. That's not so different from the way also I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a rural part of Ndola.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I was born in Ndola, but I grew up somewhere in Sakania. Um, One thing that is interesting with my childhood is that I grew up with a single parent.
Right.
So my dad died when I was just 3 years old, and I grew up with just my mom. And I think that was such an interesting time to grow,
Yeah.
only with a single parent. But my mother took charge, and she made sure that we grew up with a lot of discipline. We were religious people, so we always used to put God first in everything that we did,
Yeah.
and things went well. You know,
And I think she did an amazing job.
that's right.
Yeah, she
And
did.
I discovered that as I was growing up, I had this urge of just trying to stand out whenever I'm in a sort of social state setup.
Mm-hmm.
So I would find myself whenever I'm in like a small group, I'll stand out to be
Like a
a
leader.
leader, yes, or someone showing direction. So I think that was a very interesting childhood.
Yeah, I think it was interesting.
It was so pronounced that even when I went to like secondary school, high school, I always used to find myself maybe being a chairperson of this, a president of that, because of the way I grew up. So I think
Right.
that was a very good childhood.
Yeah, and I think based on what you said, my take is you wanted to be a leader because of not having a male parent.
Yeah,
You wanted to be
correct.
like, wanted to take up that role of growing up with a single mother. And my life was on the opposite. I grew up with both parents.
Yeah,
And the thing is, growing up from the village, we never had the exposure of having good schools.
right.
We were only exposed to government schools. And I think for us, because it was a village, that was normal.
Hmm.
We didn't even know they were like, well, you go to a private school, you learn good English. I went to from grade 1 to grade 7. I didn't know how to speak English.
Wow.
I only knew how to read from grade 4. But sometimes that's why they say you can know how to read, but you cannot know how to speak
Right.
good English.
Hmm.
You can know how to write, but you cannot know how to, like, how to speak. So I went to when I passed my grade 7 and went to Little Girls. That's when I became like I came out of a shell. You know,
Right.
I became exposed to other children who are coming from corporate belt. These are exposed cities, big
Hmm.
cities,
Yeah.
and then that affected me because I was just coming out of a village where we were just so comfortable speaking in Bemba.
Yeah.
And then now I came across people who were using English. And the only thing I knew was, how are you? What's your name? Where do you come from? Those are the those are the words I knew.
Yeah.
And my friends would bully me because I didn't know how to speak English. Or when you
Yeah.
have an argument, they would call me a villager,
Wow.
you know?
Yeah. I think that's very, very interesting because I also remember when we were growing up,
Yeah.
speaking English was more like a cliche, you know.
Right.
Um, some people would even measure your intelligence based on
How
how,
good
how
you
well you
speak.
speak
Yeah.
English.
Hmm.
But I think that was very wrong because, the language is not a measure of intelligence.
Yeah.
It's just a way of communication.
Right.
That's why, we shouldn't judge someone just based on the way that they speak or
Right.
based on the way their accent is,
Hmm.
But we grew up with that and that was just a childhood. And
Right.
yeah, it was just
because
part of the
yeah
growing
because
growing
like
up.
I said, we judge someone based on their appearance.
Yeah.
My friends were bullying me not knowing that I didn't know how to speak English, not out of like willingly not wanting to know, but because of I wasn't exposed to the means of having the luxury of learning English.
Right.
But then also the bullying also, I think, pushed me into wanting to know. And I started learning. I remember one of my friends, I asked her, I would like, I'll write something and then show it to her. I'm like, is this correct? And she'll be like,
Mm.
yeah. So how would you say it? And then she would teach me. And that's how I don't even remember how, but I know I worked so hard to learn a few words and start communicating. And that's when I became more active and would speak more, because me not knowing how to speak English, and people used to think, oh, she's quiet, she's a quiet person. I wasn't a quiet person, but I was quiet because I didn't know how to express myself.
Right. Right.
And being at a Catholic school, the rule was no vernacular. You only speak English.
Good.
You can't speak in other language.
Mm-hmm.
So if they find you speaking Bemba, you would be punished.
Wow.
That's the way it is. I don't know how things are now at Whitskiller Girls, but that's how it was back when I was there. Speaking English was the only language that we were allowed to. So that pushed me to work hard, and I was only there for 2 years, and my father couldn't manage to sponsor me to grade 12, so I had to go to a government school, which is Kasama Girls.
Yeah.
That's where I did my grade 10 to 12. So my childhood was quite a journey, and it was an experience that I would never exchange,
Right.
because me having that experience growing up in that environment helped me to be the person that I am today.
Right.
Because
Mm-hmm.
maybe if I grew up in a town, I wouldn't be here today. My life would have been different. My experience would have been different. And that's why I don't take back anything that I experienced as a child.
Good. That's very
So
interesting.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how was your school life? Like, who was Victor when you just went to school, like from the village, you know?
Yeah. I wouldn't say I grew up in a village, but it was just a little bit of a rural area,
Right.
so it wasn't very much developed. But during my primary school,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I did it in that rural area, and when I went to secondary school, I came to the urban area, which was somewhere in Indola,
Mm-hmm.
at Kansenshi High. It was very interesting. Time flew really fast,
Yeah.
and I eventually found myself in Morocco, where I was studying architecture.
Mm.
From there, I went back to Zambia. I worked for about 4 years. Then from there, I came to the United States.
So how did you find yourself in Morocco? Because you came from a humble family, like a background. How
That's
did
right.
you manage to find yourself in Morocco so that maybe someone who's watching may be, motivated?
That's right. So I was very lucky. I was very fortunate. As I mentioned, we were always religious, and we always grew up knowing that God should be first in everything that we do.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we used to work really hard, and we always put God first.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did my grade 9, which is an entry level for secondary school,
Mm-hmm.
is it the entry level? I don't know. It's somewhere there.
Yeah.
The police got there.
Mm.
Anyway, okay. So when we did our exams, grade 9, I did extremely well,
Yeah.
such that I was given an acceptance to go at a government high school, which was David Kaunda. So there, David Kaunda, it's a place where the best of the best are
Go
found
to.
in Zambia.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do the exams in grade 9, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, our grade 12 exams, I I have I did extremely well, such that I was selected to be part of a scholarship to study in Morocco. So that's how I found myself in Morocco. It was
Interesting.
through a government scholarship.
Okay. I think um it's interesting how you worked so hard to find yourself in Morocco. And I think we can't emphasize much on working hard and also putting God first,
Right.
because I had an opposite, experience. Like I mentioned, when my father retired, things became hard. And when I went to do my grade 12, I was in my final year, like I'm starting exams in November, and then he couldn't manage to continue paying for my boarding schooling. So I
Mm,
came out and started APU, like afternoon classes.
yeah.
Everyone was stressed. I was also stressed because I thought I was not going to make it. But then I prayed to God. I said, I want to become somebody in life. Lord, I need you to make a way for me. And He did a miracle.
Right.
Even when I went to college, things were not easy. I was all in the school, but people would look at me like my friends, they think I had it all because I'm one person who doesn't like showing like what I'm going through. I don't just open up anyhow. So when I say so, I remember in college when I would say I don't have talk time, and my friend would be like, memory not having talk time. I'm like
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. I don't have it all. And so, even in college, things were not easy to the point that I almost didn't write my final exams.
Yeah.
But I cried in the professor's office. I said, please, I need to write my exams. If it means me owing the school and looking for a job, I tried. I tried looking for a job,
Right. Mm-hmm.
but things just didn't work out. You know how in Zambia it's very hard nowadays to find a job, especially if you have no experience. And me being a student just made things like not easy at all. But I remained focused because I wanted to be a somebody in life someday.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I prayed to God and I said, Lord, you've answered me so far. You brought me here. And you're not just going to abandon me in my, in my time of need, especially in my finals. I need you to make a way for me. The following day, I went back to my professor's office and he said, okay, I've heard it's fine, you can write your exams, but you have to clear the balance before your graduation. Otherwise, you won't attend the graduation.
Yeah.
And so that's how that experience, I think just everything that I've gone through from growing up just pushed me to work hard and better myself.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
interesting.
yeah, it was
Mm-hmm.
it was an interesting journey.
Yeah.
So when you went to Morocco, how was the experience like being from Zambia, the language barrier, and how was your experience?
No, the experience was very, very interesting.
Hmm.
Um, so I went to Morocco in 2011.
Yeah.
That's the year that I was in Morocco. And by the time we were leaving,
Hmm.
I remember we only spoke English. So English was the only language that we knew.
Yeah.
And when we went to Morocco, we found that they speak Arabic and French.
Mm.
So that was the beginning of the challenges. We had to learn the language really quickly
Hmm.
so that we were able to
To
communicate.
communicate.
Yeah. So that was the most challenging time. Yeah, it was the most challenging moment because we needed to learn that language.
Communication
Yeah,
barrier.
communication. There was a lot of communication barrier,
Hmm.
but eventually, we went through the process. We learned the language, and the year that followed, we started our education.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was very interesting in the sense that we needed to learn a new language,
Hmm.
and at the same time, there was a culture shock.
Right.
We found a new way of living, so we had to adapt. Coming from Zambia and you're in this Arab country, it was very, very interesting. But I really liked it because the
Hmm.
people there were very, very hospitable.
Yeah.
They were very, very good people. They welcomed us, they understood us, and they taught us very well.
That's good. And I think, you being exposed to different cultures just also helped how to relate with other people.
Right. So that was a very interesting aspect of it all.
Yeah.
Was knowing the people that you're around with
Hmm.
and respecting their values while you don't agree with everything that they do.
Hmm.
That was very interesting because coming from a background where we were all Christians and
Yeah.
there's a way that we live as
Hmm.
Christians,
Which is just different.
and then you're with Arab people where they also practice their own way of living.
Hmm.
So merging the two was very, very, very interesting.
I can imagine.
Yeah, because you would imagine that every Sunday people will be going to church, right?
Hmm.
But people used to go to the mosque on Friday,
Yeah.
and Sunday was just like any other day.
Another day. And for us, Sunday is like, the actual day. Like,
Yeah,
that's our day for,
yeah.
for
So that
praying.
that was very interesting. But we learned to respect each other, even
Mm,
though we have different religions and different beliefs.
that's good.
Yeah,
Okay. And I think that has also helped us like adapt here
Yes.
because of coming from our country where we have an accent, and coming here with
Right.
we grew up with a different culture,
Mm-hmm.
and then we come here abroad where they have a different culture from ours.
Yes.
um I think at first it was also like a struggle, trying to adapt, trying to understand, trying to see things from the other perspective, like from their perspective.
Yeah.
So it's like a
So
constant struggle
I think for me, it wasn't really like a struggle um, in terms of communication,
because you've
but it's
experienced it.
yes, I've experienced it. But in America, it was more so trying to trying to put the message across.
To fit in.
Yes, because the people don't really understand the way, like the accent,
Mm-hmm.
my accent. So I would try to imitate the American accent as much as I can so that
Yeah.
it's understandable to them. Whatever
Right.
I'm saying is understandable. And I think that worked really well. I remember when we just came with my wife back in 2023, I
That
got
sounds so
this.
far.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a long time, but just 2023,
It was just
December.
like yesterday, yeah.
Yeah. We were trying to communicate. I mean, I got my first job, and um, I didn't really find it a challenge myself, but it was the other person, trying
To
to
understand
understand what
you.
I'm saying. I would
Right.
say it in a certain way, but they just don't get the accent.
It's the same thing with me. Like,
So
I am understanding what they're
it's
saying.
important to understand the American accent and try as much as you can to learn the American accent because that's a universal accent.
Yeah, it's a
Mhm.
it's a constant struggle, and I think this is something that I'm still struggling with myself,
Yeah.
trying to be understood.
Right. Hmm.
I would speak in the way that I'm used to, and they just don't get it. So for me to try and make the other person understand what I'm trying to say, I try to adapt and speak a little bit more like them.
Yeah.
And then when I communicate with someone from my country, they'll think I'm faking it. Meanwhile, and okay,
Yeah.
okay. Let me
Very
not.
challenging.
It's challenging. Let me
Hmm.
not so soft like they think. I was before we came here. I was among those people who used to think when people travel abroad, they
Yeah.
come back different. They start, faking their accent.
Yeah.
But now I am understanding because I'm here myself, and it's not about faking, but it's the constant struggle of trying to communicate and be understood.
Right.
And in the process, gradually your accent starts changing without even realizing. And when you speak to people back home, they think you're faking it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we
That was very
just
interesting.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we just wanted to share it with you guys, like just a snippet of our background,
Yeah.
to motivate someone.
That's right. Yeah. So in the same sense,
Yeah.
we shouldn't forget that this page is all about information,
Mm-hmm.
and we wouldn't finish this video by without informing you about
The DV
the
lottery,
DV lottery.
which is what got us here.
The
So
application process for
mm-hmm.
getting a visa to come to the US. By the way, very soon a new president will be sworn in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump is coming in. So it's very important that if you're planning to come to the US, you should always apply for a visa so that you come here legally. If you come to the United States legally, you have no problem. You can work, you can do whatever you're here for, but according to what the visa says.
Yeah.
So it is important that you try applying for the diversity visa lottery because that's the most straightforward one.
And I think those who
Um,
applied last year, the results will be coming
yeah,
out
for those
in
that applied for
March.
the lottery,
Is it March or next month?
This March, the results will be coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So stay tuned because we'll be announcing the date when the results will be published. And there are certain steps that you need to take if your name is announced.
Yeah.
Okay, because if your name is on the list and that you're selected to come to the United States, there are certain things that you need to do very quickly so that you get yourself ready.
Yeah.
But as of now, while you are waiting for the result to come out, it's important to just check what you have in terms of the documents that you need to present.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think we'll talk more
about that in
all
another
those
video.
things.
Yes, but
Um.
also just make sure you have your passport. Those important things: passport, birth certificate,
Yeah.
because you will need them when it comes to the interview.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think that's all we wanted to share with you guys for
yeah,
today.
hmm,
We still have more, things to talk about.
yeah.
But today was just like a trial because it's our first like episode in a long time.
That's
It's
right.
been months. We've been so busy. Life, guys, in America is so busy. We'll
It's
get
so
to talk
busy,
about
yes.
that.
So
So
also don't forget to subscribe to the page, because if you don't
yeah,
subscribe, then
you're going to
uh,
miss
you're
out.
going to miss out on a lot of things. Subscribe, and we're going to open a podcast channel just for the audio. So also subscribe to that channel. We're going to introduce it next week.
Yeah,
What we want to do is that when we have our podcast right here, we also have it on other platforms,
yeah,
so
yeah.
that we are more engaged and we're more connected.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the point of it all is we want to have to motivate you outside there, because we just didn't wake up one day and decided to be where we are right now. So
That's right.
it's a journey,
It's a
and
journey.
that's why we don't want you guys to miss on
Yeah.
anything that we talk about. And also we'll just be talking about random stuff, our
Random stuff.
experience
Our
here,
experience in America, because it's
everything.
very, very good. You know,
So
being in America
unfiltered.
is one of the best things that you can ever do in your life. So
Yeah.
if you're planning to come to America, stay tuned to this channel.
Yeah. So until next time, it's me, your host, Memory,
And
and
it's Victor.
bye bye.
Bye bye.
Don't forget to subscribe,
That's
share the
right.
link below, and till next time.
All right.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Good night.